Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today we have a brand new set of crazy revenge stories. Subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. To the story. I quit, but before I leave, let me just ruin your job. I worked as a bartender at a seafood chain. We always had an issue keeping bartenders for an assortment of weird reasons, so myself and another guy worked behind the bar about 40 to 45 hours a week. Not too long ago, I went back to school full-time, just in time for them to hire a new guy to take my hours. Jay, as he'll go by, was a crap bartender, a serial liar, and an egomaniac. Imagine all the worst things that could possibly go wrong behind a bar and make it an everyday thing. This guy accomplished maintaining an environment of crap and abject laziness for all 2 to 3 months we worked together. I was working way less, but every shift I came in after him, nothing was prepared. Glasses were dirty, but put away. No fruit was cut or mixes made, and whole kegs were empty. It sucked working there as I was doing twice the work I was slated for every shift. None of the managers really ever did anything about him either. He was a warm body, and that's really all they needed. Soon enough, I put in my 2 weeks and had 2 shifts left. It was a Sunday morning where he'd closed the night before, and lo and behold, everything was a catastrophic mess. I gave up. Didn't do anything my entire shift except for takeout orders, left the bar the way he left it the night before, and waited for him to come in for the night shift. He's 30 minutes late, and as I'm ready to clock out, one of the managers asks me why I haven't done anything. Jay did jack crap last night? When are you going to tell him to do his effing job? So Jay shows up, sees that nothing is done, flips crap, and walks out of the restaurant. I clock out and start driving home. Both of us were terminated. It felt great. Well, it looks like we know where Dennis worked while he was away from Patty's Pub. And our next story. The old lady that owned a pizza place building in my town. This is a funny pro-revenge story about how an old lady screwed over her entitled children. The actors in this story are Old Lady, OL, owner of the building. She's 80-plus years old and has an apartment in the same building as the pizza place. Pizza owner, PO, owner of the restaurant and good friend of OL. Super entitled son, SES. Take note, this guy is 50-plus years old and one of the 3 old lady's sons. They're all entitled and made a huge fuss, but SES was the worst. Background. In my town, there's a famous pizza restaurant. It's in a prime spot and always busy. I've known the PO since I was a kid, and I know he makes a ton of money from the restaurant. He's told me that he makes between $2,000 and $10,000 in profits each day, but he did not own the building and had wanted to do so since he started renting. OL always refused to sell, no matter the offer, and trust me, she's received huge offers. The story. This happened over a year. The OL received an offer from a bank for the building. Everyone in town learned about it because the offer was for over $1 million. This is an incredibly high amount in my country. Of course, the old lady refused to sell. Here comes entitled kids. Apparently all 3 learned that their mother got this massive offer, and because she's getting old, they wanted her to sell to move her into a retirement home. Since then, they've been insisting on her selling. That's the best she's going to get, and it would be the best for them to get that much money in their inheritance. Apparently, this PO'd the old lady so much, she went behind her children's back and offered to sell the place to PO for a fraction of the bank's offer. From what PO told me, she sold him the building for about $280,000 with a clause that he's not allowed to tear it down while she lives and that she's allowed to live in her apartment until she dies. PO agrees to the terms by OL and bought the place. OL made sure to have a doctor and lawyer check her to make sure they got all the legal stuff, indicating she was sane and what she was doing was on her own will. She was preparing for the crap storm that was coming and covering PO from the wrath of her entitled children. Boy, was she right. A week after the purchase was complete and PO became the sole owner of the building, OL's oldest son showed up to the restaurant in the middle of dinner on a busy Sunday, demanding to speak with PO. From other people's testimony, he started yelling that PO was a scammer and that he took advantage of an old lady and he was going to be sued for all he had. When P.O. responded that he bought the place and that SES's mother was the one that offered to sell the place to him, SES stormed to the OL apartment and began yelling to his mother. The other two sons were behind, nearby, yelling as well, that he was going to take P.O. to court because he took advantage of an old lady, and she was going to say in court that it was all true, even threatened P.O. that he was going to kill him for what he did. Somebody called the police, and they handcuffed SES. This is where it gets better. OL told SES and her other two sons that they were getting nothing out of her even on her death. She'd already donated 80% of all her money to a charity, and whatever she had left when she dies was going to the same charity. Sadly, I was not there, but I would give anything to SES and his brothers when she told him to suck it. OL's alive and well. P.O.'s renovating the place, making it larger and nicer. SES got a restraining order to be at least 100 meters away from both P.O. And our last story. Landlord wants to sue us for hurricane damage. I lived briefly in Florida about a decade ago, which is where I met my partner. It wasn't long after we met that we moved in together due to my not-so-great living situation, renting a room from a friend. We found a nice little two-bedroom house that was owned by an elderly couple that lived just a few blocks away. Everything was okay. We did find cockroaches after we moved in, which was quite shocking as I'm extremely clean and had never had roaches before. And when we told the landlords, they told us they were not roaches, but palmetto bugs. FYI, they're the same thing, and refused to have an exterminator come in. Bad sign number one. Then a hurricane blew in. This was Florida after all. It was only a Cat 1 or Cat 2, I don't remember, but there was substantial damage to the roof and a lot of water had gotten in. Being northerners, we had no real idea how to prepare properly, and the landlords just told us to lower the hurricane shutters, so that's all we did. It wasn't long after we had mold growing on our walls, especially in the laundry room. Reported it to the landlords, and they told us to just wash it down with bleach water. So we did, and it came right back. So it was a constant cleaning process. When we complained, we were told that was what life in Florida was like. They also came and took a look at the roof from the yard and told us, "You two are strapping young men, you can go up there and fix it. Just let us know when you're done." Yeah, no. The other hurricane blew through, and again, only a Cat 1 or 2, but this time we had windows broken during the storm. Since our roof was still not repaired or even tarped from the last storm, our carpets and furniture were soaked. Here comes the black mold again, but this time not only on our walls, but on our carpets and furniture too. I spent the days outside with our dog, and we were sleeping in my partner's office. Our landlords again told us to just clean it up with bleach water and that the damage was our fault since we didn't prepare well and hadn't fixed the roof ourselves. So we called the city and had an inspector come by. He walked in and balked at what he found. Black mold all over the carpets and walls. The roach population had a little boom, and he could tell while looking at the roof that it was in need of a repair prior to the storm, and it still hadn't been tarped. The best part is when I was standing at our open door with the inspector just inside, the old man came walking up talking about how we better have repaired the roof and how they were going to charge us for all the repairs and carpet replacements and mold removal, yada yada yada. Cue the city worker, who came around the corner and asked him if he was the owner. He said yes, and the inspector told him he was condemning the house because it was not habitable and that it was not our responsibility as tenants to make or pay for the repairs. He also recommended that we should be released from the lease. Never seen an old man wobble away so fast. Later that night, his wife called, raising high holy hell about how she was suing us for damages, how we were not getting any money back, blah, blah, blah. She also said she'd remove the condemned/danger signage that was placed on the door because it was embarrassing. People knew it was their property. But she made a mistake. She wrote us strongly worded letters about how we were taking advantage of the elderly, how all the damages were our fault since we didn't do any repairs, how she would not release us from the lease, and how many lawsuits she was going to hit us with. After contacting the inspector who saw our house, who took another trip to the house to replace the signage, we turned all of this in. He laughed and sighed and said he knew exactly how to handle it since he saw this all the time after hurricanes, and if they actually sued, he would testify in our favor since what they were doing is highly illegal. He then told us he was going to pay them a little visit and make sure the letters got into the hands of the right people as well as how he had to replace the signs. Another thing she admitted in the letters. About a week later, we got a really pleasant call from the landlady saying we were such wonderful tenants and how she was refunding our security deposit and how she was graciously going to let us out of the lease and not pursue any charges or the rent for the last few months, which we'd refused to pay since we could not live there. And if we needed help finding a new place, let her know and she'd refer us to some of her friends who owned property too. LOL. Nope. We did learn, because we were watching the situation, that the house had to be gutted and completely remodeled. We actually parked up the road with some takeout and watched a crew haul out sheetrock and carpet. They could have saved themselves thousands if they just called a roofer and someone to clean up the mold instead of making us call the city and have the house condemned, and then do whatever they did to make them change their minds on everything else. Still wish I could have been there when they were confronted by inspectors the second time. The first was glorious. Why do so many landlords have absolutely no clue about rental laws? Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.